Thinking about full-time RV living? We're breaking down the pros and cons from stationary setups to nomadic life on the move. Avoid budget pitfalls, decide if a home base is right for you, and learn how to stay prepared for emergencies. Plus the latest RV news and an RV pro tip you won't want to miss. Welcome to the Restless Nomads, the ultimate RV show for modern-day rubber tramps and weekend warriors alike. Whether you're chasing sunsets full-time, savoring seasonal escapes, or just hitting the road for a quick weekend getaway, this is your go-to show for tips, tricks, and tales from the road. Join us as we dive into everything RV, choosing the right rig, surviving life on wheels, and navigating the highs and lows of life on the move. From towables to motorhomes, budget hacks to campsite secrets, we've got you covered. So buckle up, nomads, and let's hit the road to adventure, 1 mile at a time. Well, thanks for joining us again on another episode of The Restless Nomads. Check us out online at therestlessnomads.com. That's therestlessnomads.com. Let's jump right into some RV news. Here's your RV news update. Well, national park campgrounds are seeing record bookings this year. The spring and summer travel season is quickly approaching, and popular national parks are already fully booked well in advance. So if you're planning on visiting Yellowstone or Yosemite or Glacier this year, you better get on it, but you might be relying on waiting for those cancellations maybe next year. Also, a new tax law could affect full-timers. A proposed nomad tax in some states aims to impose property-style taxes on long-term RV dwellers who don't maintain a permanent residence. Man, every good thing that comes along, the government has to step in and try to ruin it, don't they? The details are still unfolding, but full-timers should keep an eye out for these legal changes. I sure hope they don't do something that foolish. That's really inhibiting your freedom. Also, lithium battery prices are dropping. That's good news for us RVers. You know, lithium battery prices were out of reach for most folks even 10 years ago, but now they've fallen 20% this year. So that's making solar-powered and off-grid camping more affordable than ever. There's your RV news. Let's jump into today's topic. So today we're talking about the many flavors of full-time RVing and also the pros and cons of full-time RVing. So if you're thinking about full-time RVing, there's so many YouTube channels that paint this as just this glamorous, wonderful, adventurous, luxurious lifestyle. And it has its upsides, but there are some downsides too. Now, there are a couple different types of full-time RVers. There's the stationary full-timers. Usually, these are folks that just can't afford a sticks and bricks house or something like that. Maybe they're on Social Security or that kind of thing. You see this a lot where someone buys an RV and they put it in a park and they live in that RV, but it never moves. It just stays right there. It doesn't matter if the tires go flat. No big deal because they ain't ever moving it, right? So essentially, it's just like living in a mobile home park with a smaller mobile home. It ain't moving, right? Can be a good idea if you need to downsize in space and in budget, although RV parks per month are going up. For example, we stayed at one that had a monthly rate of $275 about 10 years ago, and I think it's over $600 nowadays. So just be aware of that. Still cheaper than renting an apartment, but that's a lot of money for a parking space and an electrical connection, if you ask me. Good for folks that are trying to save money and they still need to be near work, family, medical care, that kind of thing. That can come with some challenges. You know, if you have surgery or something, moving around in a small space like that can be good or it can be bad, depending on the situation. Some people do it just because they like the simplicity of RV living without the constant movement. Here's a couple of the downsides. Some campgrounds limit long-term stays, and you may end up paying high monthly rent without ever really traveling. Most RV parks offer a monthly rate, and those are the ones that you want to seek out. Another downside to this, which is kind of dumb in my opinion, sometimes the RV parks will have age limits for the RVs. Most of them require the RVIA sticker on the side, so you can't bring a school bus or a converted cargo trailer or something like that. And a lot of them have gone to where your RV must be 10 years old or newer, which that can be a serious challenge if you're operating on a budget in the first place and you buy a little bit older RV. You know, there are several RVs that are 20 years old that look great and everything works in them, but some of these parks require 10 years or newer, which I think is kind of bananas. I mean, it's an RV park. Get over yourself, right? Okay, second type of full-timer is the more traditional and the kind that you see on YouTube all over the place. That's the nomadic full-timer. It's a little bit more adventurous and I would just say entertaining because you're seeing new places, you're traveling. It's the true wanderers, RVers who rarely stay in one place for too long. They move from state parks to BLM land to campgrounds to truck stops to RV parks to you name it, right? And everybody has their own preferences. Now, one of the biggest pros is that you can pretty much go wherever you want. So if you don't like where you're at, you can pick up and move and you're somewhere new and you're constantly exploring new places. It can be affordable if you do it correctly, but it is more than likely going to cost you more than if you were to stay stationary in an RV park or something like that. Now, some people, depending on how much you travel, really affects what you should budget for this, right? Some people will travel to a place and they'll stay for 2 or 3 months, or they'll stay for a couple weeks, and that can help as far as affordability goes if you stay a little bit longer, and it also gives you a little more time to be able to explore. And travel days are just stressful. So putting a little bit of distance between between your travel days can help out and make it more fun. You just kind of have to determine by experience and also how much you want to pay for gas, how often you want to move. My wife and I have found that about 1 week is our sweet spot. We can stay in a place for about a week and then we want to move on. Some people stay for a month. Some people stay for a couple weeks. Some people stay for a season. Just depends. For us, we start getting kind of antsy after about a week and we want to move on. Now, if you're a full-time RVer and you don't have a permanent home base, there are some things that you have to think about. There's some risks that come along with that adventure. So let's say that you're a full-time RVer and you sold your home. Well, if you get into an accident or your truck breaks down, you need to have a plan because you don't have any safety net there. Now, there are some things that you can do to kind of mitigate these risks if you're full-time and you have no backup place to go. First and foremost, have good insurance. In fact, you can buy insurance that is kind of catered towards full-timing so that if something happens to your RV, your insurance company will actually pay for a hotel for a certain amount of nights or even a rental car should you need that while your RV is in the shop getting fixed. So good insurance is a must. If you're full-time, you want to have the most protection you can get. Also, on the topic of insurance, make sure that you have comprehensive insurance. That way, when your truck is disconnected from the trailer, if you have a towed rig, or if your motorhome is parked with the engine off in a campground and a tree falls on it or something like that, you're covered. You want to be combing your policy, making sure that you're covered for every instance that you can, and if you're not covered by something, ask what it would cost to get it covered, because like I said, you want the maximum coverage you can get And typically, RV insurance is not that expensive. Now, that brings me to this. So your automobile insurance, like let's say you get automobile insurance for your truck, usually covers the trailer while you're in tow. The same goes for a motorhome. If you have automobile insurance on a motorhome and you wreck the motorhome, then you're usually covered. Now, if you're at a campground and you forget to chock the wheels and the motorhome rolls off the cliff, but the engine's off, your insurance is going to try to weasel out of that. So just be aware of that. And there are most of the time you buy specific policies that cover the RV when it's not in motion. So things to think about there, and always a good idea to have as much protection to give yourself some peace of mind. And also, if you break down and you have to take it to the shop, you have some options there that you won't be coming out of your pocket. I've got 2 more items here for some added peace of mind. So another thing you want to have is an emergency fund. And you usually want to have enough in this, like if something catastrophic happens, let's say your engine throws a rod or something, you can cover the cost of that because insurance won't be covering that, right? They may cover the cost of the hotel and the rental car while the truck's in the shop or your motorhome's in the shop getting fixed, but you want to have enough to cover that. It's a good idea to have that saved up before you even set out. And as you move down the road, this should be separate from your maintenance fund. But when you have to use it, you need to immediately start building that back up if you can. Okay, so emergency fund, maintenance fund, big 2. And then you can save a ton of headache and money if you start learning how to fix little things on your RV by yourself. When you take it to the shop, you're going to have to pay labor. That's really expensive. I think on average about $200 an hour. It's crazy. And you have to wait for them to fix it, which usually means that you have to wait for them to order parts and everything else. It's a real pain in the butt. Whereas if you learn how to do it, you can fix it on some sweat equity, no paying for labor, just the cost of parts. And usually when you set out to fix something that breaks, and things will break in an RV, they always do. No matter what RV you get, you're going to have things that break. It's the nature of the beast. Learning how to fix those things usually teaches you more about other systems in that RV, where when the next problem arises, you'll be better equipped to address it. YouTube University is the best place for learning how to fix problems with your RV, in my experience. Also, join a bunch of the Facebook groups for your RV specifically, your make and model, and you will oftentimes find problems that other people are having that have preventative measures that you can take right now to avoid those problems, or just have them in mind and know what to do should they arise. Okay, we'll look more into that further on down the line here. Then we have hybrid full-timers, and my wife and I have made our way to this. We did full-time RVing for a whole year when we were looking for a house, and then we bought a house. Now we're hybrid, and I don't even know if you'd consider us full-timers necessarily right now, but we have periods where we go full-time. So we'll go for extended trips. Some RVers own a home. Some of them even have an RV lot that they own. You can actually buy an RV lot. The last time I looked around at them, they were going for about $40,000. Depending on the area, it'll be higher or lower. But you actually buy that little bit of property. It can be a site that you buy in a park, or you can buy property and install hookups on that property and an RV pad, and then it's yours. So you always have a place to bring the RV back to. Now, that doesn't really solve the problem if your RV catches on fire. Where do you go, right? So have that in mind. But it's a good idea, if you can afford it, to have a place to kind of retreat to in case your RV breaks down or your truck breaks down. A lot of people, my wife and I included, rent out a portion, like a guest bedroom or something like that, of their home when you're on the road for an extended period of time. And that can help cover some of the costs of owning the home and having the electricity on and the gas and the garbage service and all that. You know, if you're just shelling out money for those services but not really using them, that can be kind of frustrating. So maybe consider renting it out to a traveling nurse or something like that. We prefer the short-term rentals. They're only there for 6 weeks or so, and then they're moving on. That way, when we come home, if they're still there, we don't have long to wait before they leave. But that's kind of one of the ways that you can enjoy the best of both worlds. Having a home base makes full-time RVing feel a lot less risky because if anything happens, let's say you're down in Arizona and your truck breaks down or your RV catches on fire, worst case scenario, you jump on a Greyhound or on the Amtrak or on an airplane and come home and you have a place to lay your head that night, which is pretty nice. So those are things to consider. Well, hey, let's go to a break. We'll get into some more challenges of full-time RVing just after the break, and also your RV pro tip on the way right here on the Restless Nomads radio show. Want to get your business noticed? Sponsor a show on KKFO Gold Country Radio on 103.3 FM and create awareness through on-air announcements, our online stream at goldcountryradio.org, and our podcasts that live on forever. Your message reaches a broad local audience while also targeting listeners who choose to tune in to the shows they love. Plus, we promote your sponsorship across our website and social media. For more information, email goldcountryradio@gmail.com. Call 541-238-6989 or visit goldcountryradio.org. Gold Country Radio, your message heard locally and beyond. All right, welcome back to the Restless Nomads radio show. Mike here with you. Hey, visit goldcountryradio.org. That's the radio station website where this show is featured and aired live originally. That's goldcountryradio.org. You can click on featured shows, and then you'll see the Restless Nomads radio show under that tab, as well as all of the other community shows. Make It Out Alive with Sam Wilson, Terrible at Fishing with Michael Ruffino, and the Life Outdoors radio show. That's a hunting Southern Oregon radio show with Nate Bailey. All right, time for the RV pro tip. Always have a backup plan when it comes to reservations. Before heading to a new destination, especially if it's far away, always research a backup spot just in case your campground is full or you get double booked or something like that, especially if you're going up there and you're relying on first come, first serve and you plan on showing up later in the day. Holy smokes, especially if it's a weekend. We worked a season at Lake Cochise in Washington, and they didn't allow anyone into the campground before 2 o'clock. And there were literally hundreds of cars lined up, all looking for a campsite by 1:45 in the afternoon. And they were just lined up outside the campground, waiting to get in. And, you know, of course, the people in the back of the line, oftentimes we had to turn them away because the campground was full at that point. And there was just no more sites available. So having a backup site, even if it's a Walmart or a Cracker Barrel or a truck stop, maybe some public land nearby, having that plan B is going to save you a lot of stress. One of the things that you can always do when it comes to reservations, let's say you're wanting to go to the Oregon coast in the summertime and you can't get a reservation. Well, if you're camping over on some public land in Central Oregon or something, you can check for last minute cancellations because so many people change their plans all the time and those cancellations will pop up. Be in contact with the campground if you can over the phone. That's probably the best way. Otherwise, you're kind of relying on the internet and hitting that refresh screen, refreshing the screen, looking for those cancellations. Now, let's get into some nightmares of last-minute reservations. If you're a weekend warrior, no big deal, right? If you go to make a reservation and you find that the campground is full, well, no big deal. You just enjoy the air conditioning that weekend and you stay inside and stay home, or you look elsewhere, right? Somewhere relatively close to home. Now, if you're full-time RVing and you're staying in a Walmart parking lot and they give you 12 hours to stay there and then you have to move on, that can be a little bit frustrating if you are trying to find your next place to go and everything you're looking at is booked. So it's really important to plan ahead, especially for popular areas. If you're near national parks and things like that, these places sell out so fast. You got to book well in advance. And what I usually do when I'm kind of planning our itinerary, our trip, I look at the most popular places that we're passing through and we want to stay in. I book those first, and because you kind of have to have some flexibility with dates. So book the hardest to get ones first, and then book the easier ones around that. That's a little pro tip for you. Just a sideline mention here. February 2025, I went to book a site at Silver Falls State Park in Oregon, which is just east of Salem, and it's pretty popular. February, they were already sold out. Couldn't get one night in July. That's how bad it is sometimes. Okay, so when you're looking for these backup sites, good idea to be looking at public land and be able to boondock if you have to. Now, in the dead of summer, if you don't have a generator or you don't have enough battery bank to run the air conditioner, that can be a huge consideration, right? I know in the summertime, we like our 30 amp power because we want that air conditioning going. But public land, BLM, National Forest, all the ones that allow you to stay, do what they call dispersed camping. And you also have to think about accessibility when it comes to getting an RV in there. You want to be looking at the satellite views on Google Maps and making sure, hey, is this even going to be feasible? Because a lot of public land has dispersed camping allowed for up to 14 days, but maybe you can't even get into that area to camp. Now, typically with public land, a good rule of thumb is if you don't see any signs saying no camping, you're allowed to stay there. Do your research, but typically the length of stay is limited to 14 days, which is pretty generous. You can also look at Google Maps or RV Trip Wizards or Allstays or one of the many apps and look for other places in the area, call around, see if they have any availability should your first option not work out. So one of the biggest downsides to full-time RVing is that you don't have a permanent home. If you're not a hybrid person, but you're actually on the road, and that is 100% full-time your home. Now, things that happen, if your RV gets stolen, that's one of the worst things, right? It breaks down, or maybe it burns to the ground. It's going to leave you in a situation where you're scrambling for shelter. So again, that emergency fund for situations just like that, very important. And I'll hit it again. Really good RV insurance, not expensive. You should get the maximum coverage you can. And then also consider having a storage unit or a home base to keep some valuables. Another solution to this, if you're full-time RVing, especially with documents, they sell, you can either get like a fire safe, which is a good thing to have, and you can keep your passports and your birth certificate, social security cards, that kind of thing in the fire safe. Those are kind of bulky, and if you don't want something huge for an RV, you don't want anything very heavy. So they sell these fireproof bags. My wife and I bought one of those, and it's just like this document bag that's fireproof, and it's rated, it can burn for an hour or something like that. But have that, buy one of those bags with all your documents in it, and have it in a place where you can grab it and get out the door, and make that a part of your egress strategy. Grab your paperwork as you make your way out the door. If at all possible, keep it in a location where it's easy to grab. Maybe not for a visitor, but somewhere where you know you can get to it quick and get out a window or a door if something should happen. Let's talk a little bit about things that can drain your bank account if you're full-time RVing, especially if you're brand new to it. So most people don't even think about the cost of movement. Gasoline is expensive. RVs are typically not efficient. So think about that, and maybe you're getting on line and you're planning out your first maiden voyage, and you have a plan to drive 300 miles every day, 400 miles every day, and you're going to stay in a different RV park. Things are going to rack up pretty quick because you're paying a lot of money in gas. So you need to be cognizant of that. Not only does that add a lot of stress, because driving an RV, any kind of RV, is nowhere near as relaxing as driving your Honda Civic down the road. It can be a little bit stressful. Now, there is the rule of threes. My wife and I have kind of adopted this, and typically, here's the rule of threes. We won't travel any more than 3 hours on a travel day, typically. Now, we make some exceptions, especially for the last leg on the way home. Usually that'll be a little bit longer because we're motivated to get home. So not that big of a deal. Maximum 3 hours drive time or 300 miles. And this is totally personal preference, but it works. If you follow this rule, you'll find that there'll be a lot less stress and you'll enjoy your time a lot more. And then when you get where you're going, don't move for 3 days. So 3 hours, 300 miles, and 3 days of rest in between travel days makes for much easier, and that's 3 days minimum of rest between travel days, makes for much more enjoyable and easier RVing trips, if you ask me and many others. I'm not the inventor of the rule of threes. I got that from other folks on YouTube. Now, another big pitfall that most new full-timers have, especially if they're going to be on the road for extended period of time, you know, even if you're a hybrid, you own a home, but you're going to be out for a couple months on a trip, or if you buy an RV, sell your home, and you're going to be out there 100% of the time. You want to avoid being in the vacation mindset. And I say this, but I know that each and every person is going to go through some degree of this before they figure it out. They have to experience it. But a lot of RVers burn through their savings quickly because it feels like a vacation, right? When you're traveling and you're excited, you're going to go eat out a lot. You're going to be buying all kinds of souvenirs because you're excited about all the new places that you're seeing. It's natural. This is your new normal, though. It's not going to be a vacation. The sooner that you shift to a budget-conscious, sustainable travel style, the better. Now let's talk about some stays that may be a little easier on your wallet. So we did an episode on the 1,000 Trails membership that offers long-term stays for pretty affordable, especially if you are full-time or going to be traveling extensively, compared to regular RV parks. And I did a budget breakdown, how much it would cost per night on a certain trip using our 1,000 Trails membership. It can be a great option. One of the things that a lot of people enjoy doing, and my wife and I are not quite like this, but a lot of people love it, is boondocking on public lands. That's free, but you don't have any hookups. And generally, even if you do have a good solar system and a good battery bank, or you're running generators and you got plenty of fuel, you have some limitations, mainly water. Where are you getting your water? Because you can only take so much out with you. Also, gasoline for the generators. And then the biggest and probably the one that runs out the fastest is your black tank. When that black tank is full, where are you going to dump it? That is more than likely going to be your time of stay limitation, the one thing that makes you move on to go find a dump station. Now, another great way to save money if you're a full-timer and even make money is by work camping, and we did an episode on that too. You can stay an entire season at a campground and get paid to clean bathrooms and check people in and collect camping fees and so forth. And we discussed in that episode the two models here. Some work camping jobs are volunteer only, so you just get your space, and some are paid. I would encourage you never to accept a volunteer position without hookups, because that is a really bad deal. And the more people that accept those, it's communicating to places that hire these folks that is acceptable. And it simply is not. If there are no hookups, they aren't bringing anything to the table other than a parking spot, you should not be volunteering there. Otherwise, you're really making it more difficult for everyone else involved. In fact, I have a bit of an issue with volunteer programs, period. Hey, if it works for you, then great. I don't take the jobs because I think that we bring value to the table as work campers, and it should be compensated. The more people that accept volunteer positions, the more these folks that hire these people are going to see that and go, oh, we can do this on a volunteer basis. Let's get rid of the paying positions. And that is going to be bad for a lot of work campers in the long run. Now, sometimes volunteering can be okay if everything else is to your expectation. Like the Oregon State Parks, when you volunteer, you're not required to do heavy lifting and cleaning bathrooms and things, and they only ask for a commitment of 1 month at a time. That seems like a pretty good deal. But if an organization wants you to volunteer 40 hours a week to clean crappy bathrooms and spend 6 months there doing that, and all they're going to provide you is a parking space without any hookups, you are getting screwed, my friends. Okay, we have to address this. One of the biggest problems with full-time RV living is the homelessness stigma. Just because you live in an RV doesn't necessarily mean you're homeless. Now, it really gets down to semantics. How do you define homeless, right? But typically, the stigma of homelessness is associated with drug use, mental illness, unhygienic living conditions, that kind of thing. Now, let's be real. There are full-time RVers struggling with homelessness. I think it's a separate symptom of a bigger issue. But then you have full-time RVers that work every day remotely, retirees. You have adventurous families living that way by choice. And I think that's a huge factor. You know, are they doing it by choice? Are they traveling by choice, and are they going and seeing exciting new places? Or are they traveling in a less than maintained motorhome or travel trailer and getting kicked out of parking lots? That'll kind of tell you which one you are, you know, if you're thinking about this. Now, part of the stigma comes from some terribly irresponsible RVers that are ruining camping for everyone else. Some RVers will go out and camp on public land. Usually the 14-day max, they are well over that when they go. They try to live out there on public land, and they usually trash sites. They ignore all the stay limits. They ignore all the rules. They're out there doing drugs. They're just they're painting a very bad picture of what it means to be a full-time RVer. The worst thing that I have seen, and this happens more often than I like to admit, these same folks, let's just call them the trashy folks, right? The irresponsible folks, have been caught dumping black tanks on public land right in the campsite, sometimes without a stinky slinky or a sewer hose connected. They just pull the valve and let her rip, and they dump all of that human waste right in the campsite. The reckless behavior like this is what leads to campground closures, national forest closures to camping. BLM takes a look at it, and they say, nope, This is costing us too much money to send people out to clean up after these guys. So we're just going to do away with it altogether. So when you see this kind of thing, it's a good idea to report it. Many people that go out and boondock on these public lands actually take a trash bag and litter pickers and clean up. Unfortunately, I mean, it shouldn't be your responsibility, but if you don't do it, if we don't do it as a responsible public, then these irresponsible people will likely drive our government agencies to close these things down and make it unavailable for the rest of us for good. So to protect free camping, they're out there cleaning up these irresponsible people's trash. We need to take care of these places. It's the only way to maintain our continued use of them. Well, hey guys, that wraps up this episode of the Restless Nomads. Do you full-time RV? What are your biggest struggles and best tips? Just log on to therestlessnomads.com. Drop us a message. Let us know. I'm curious to hear from other folks and looking forward to maybe doing some interviews in future podcasts from full-time RVers. Hey, we've got some exciting news. We will be hosting the Crescent Lake Campground this season. So if you are in the area this summer, stop by and say hello to the Restless Nomads, your hosts, Mike and Angie. Well, until next time, everybody, stay safe, happy camping. We'll see you on the next episode of the Restless Nomads Radio Show.